So now that I've shown you how to draw an alien by stacking up the layers and overlapping your shapes, and then we did it again with Porky Pig, now you're going to have a longer complicated drawing with Elmer Fudd. So I'm going to walk you through that process as well. I'm going to go to File and Open. Right here I've already navigated to my folder, Draw Elmer Fudd. I'm going to open up that file. And as you can see, I've already started the layers and I've already started a few shapes to get you going. So I'm going to turn off the instructions for right now. You can have them if you wanted to read them over later, but since I have them here and I'm walking you through it, might as well get rid of it and just jump right in. So first thing I'm going to do is start with his boots. You can see right here that as I've drawn the big shape of the boot, I drew a line starting outside, cutting across the boot and ending outside. The reason why I drew these lines is I want his boots to be two-toned boots. Because you can see right down here on my swatches, I have a folder right there called Elmer Fudd Colors, so they're ready to go. So I want to turn these into two-tone boots, not just flat brown. So right up here, right where the line crosses over the boot, I'm going to select it right there. Go to Window, Pathfinder, and divide his boot. Divide, Object, Ungroup, and then I'm going to do the same thing with this one over here. Select right where that line hits the top edge of the boot. Divide, Object, Ungroup. Remember from the previous files, I overlapped my shapes, and that's key here. So I'm going to start right here, select the bottom part of this boot, hold Shift and select the bottom part of that boot. I'm on my fill, so I'll fill them dark brown. I'll select the top edge of this boot, hold Shift and select the top edge of this one, and I'll turn them lighter brown. So now he has those two-tone boots. Okay, you can also see that it's covering up the bottom edge of the pant leg. So if the boots are done, I lock them and close up the eyeball. These little wrinkles are on the layer way up here. Wrinkles, folds, and details. You can see it right there when I turn that off. I do my wrinkles on a separate layer. Okay, wrinkles, folds, and details. So I'll turn that off as well for now. I'm going to come over to the rifle, and what I want to do is select all the gray parts of the rifle first. So I'm just going to click and drag across here. Hold my space bar for the hand tool. I'll hold Shift, select this gray piece, not the line. Lines just sit as lines. It's just the shapes. I'll select this piece, hold Shift and select the trigger. I'm on the fill, and I will fill them with gray. Then I'm going to select just the edge of the shape for the stock of the gun. Hold Shift and select this pump part of the gun right here. Click on my fill, and I'll fill them brown. Okay, when I click outside, notice how this metal bar and the trigger look like they're on top of the stock. They should be coming out from behind. So I'm going to select right over these two gray shapes and go to Object menu, Arrange, and send them to the back. Now the trigger comes out from underneath. The bar ends right at the edge of the stock. And if I hold space bar for the hand tool, I'm going to do the same thing for the sight right up here. Select the edge, Object, Arrange, Send to back. And now the rifle is done. So I will lock that layer. Now again, the rifle is drawn in a way that's going to make the hand look like it's holding the rifle. So since I can't see the hand, turn off the eyeball. Okay, what I'm also going to do is save my progress. I'll go to File menu, Save As, go to my desktop, and I'll call this last name, first name, Elmer Fudd. And I'll save it. Okay, and since I have some of these other elements already drawn out, might as well finish these two. So right up here is the hat ribbon. I'm going to click right on the edge of that ribbon, click on the fill, and fill it brown. That layer, that's the only thing I drew on that layer was the hat ribbon. So once that is done, I lock it and turn off the eyeball. Now you'll notice his hat is two-toned. It's brown over here, but it's red over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've drawn a line right here that goes right across his hat. And I've drawn another line right here that goes right across the bill of his hat. Okay, I'm going to use both of those lines to cut his hat into smaller pieces. So I'm going to start up here, click and drag over all of the hat and the two lines right there. Divide them into pieces. Object menu, ungroup the pieces. And now I'm left with all the folds and the details. And that's why I have a layer called wrinkles, folds, and details. So I'll turn that back on. And lucky for you, I've already drawn those. Perfect. Okay, cool. I forgot I did that. So those are done. Nice. I'm just going to lock that layer. Those wrinkles, folds, and details, they're done. Okay, I'm going to select the edge of the hat right here. Click on the fill and fill it brown. Click right on the edge of the brim of the hat. Fill it brown. Click on the edge over here, and I will fill that red. Now his hat is done. I can lock it. The ribbon comes out from behind the hat at the top. Those three are locked. My rifle is locked. My boots are locked because they're all done. Command S to save my progress. And I'm going to finish off the ears. Now, again, notice how I overlapped the edges of his ears because they're going to tuck behind his head. Okay, his head is way up here, but notice his ears are tucked below, which means behind. So again, if you have lines, lines are like wrinkles and folds and details. Lines are by themselves. You leave them alone. I'm just going to select the edge of his ear there. Hold shift and just select the edge of his ear right there. Go to my fill. I'll fill them with skin tone. Lock them because they are done. And they're covering part of his head, so I'll turn off that eyeball. And now I want to go up to head shape. Okay, even though the overall shape of his head is going to be skin tone, I'm not going to fill it yet. So I'll click on the skin tone and hit the question mark key, and I'll zoom in. Now for this demo, you can see on the scan that these lines have sharp, pointy ends. You don't need to do that. Okay, notice I didn't do that with any of the wrinkles up here. I'm just going to draw with just simple lines, just to keep it simple for everybody. So basic outlines. So his skin tone goes right down here into his neck. So I'm going to start on this corner. Click and drag a short line up and another short line up right there. Option key for a corner to start. No option key for that little bump for his chin. Option key to start from a corner. Right up here I put a point before the sharp turn of his cheek, right after the sharp turn of his cheek, which is also the sharp turn before this side. Come around and go back up the side of his head. Right up here before the sharp turn. Come right up to this corner. Up. And again I go up and overlap the top of his head. It has to look like it goes up under his hat. So I'm drawing underneath the top edge of his hat right there, or the bottom edge of his hat, which is the top of his head. Now I'm going to come down. You're not going to see this because I'm drawing underneath the hat. Okay, now I'm going to come down to here, click and drag down, Come all the way down to that edge, the corner, click and drag down. Option key for a corner to start. I put a point before the sharp turn of his cheek, right after the sharp turn of his cheek, right to the corner of that cheek right there. Option key to start from a corner, and I hold option key at the end to end at a corner. So his head shape is going to be this. That's going to be both the edge of his neck and the edge of his collar right there. But that's how I would start. Now I can come up to wrinkles, folds, and details. I'm going to unlock that layer, and I'll start right here. Click and drag, command click, click and drag to the right, click and drag up, command click, click and, or let's just click here, click there, short little line, command click, and I'm going to save these wrinkles for the face details. I'll just do these little wrinkles up in here. So on wrinkles, folds, and details. So click and drag up, right up into his hat, which is under. And no, notice that is on top of his hat because that layer is above everything. Okay, but that's not a problem. I'll just tuck that under his hat. I drag it to the thin blue line. But now look what happened to all the wrinkles on the hat. Okay, this is why layers are really important. I'm going to pull the wrinkles and folds and details back above the hat. Delete this wrinkle right here. Delete, delete. And I'm going to save that. Let's lock this top layer and save the face wrinkles for face details. Otherwise, if I draw on the wrong layer, it's going to sit on top. Okay. Command S. Let me save my progress. Now we'll come down to face details. Now when I click and drag up and overlap the brim of his hat, it will go under. Command click to deselect. We'll do another little short curve. Command click. Do another curve right here. Command click. Do another little short curve. Command click. And let's draw his nose. I'll start right here. Short line for a very short curve. Now I'm at the top of the nostril. Now I click and drag down the side of the nostril. Really short lines for really short curves. I'll come across the bottom of his nose, up the side of his nose, across the top of his nose, and down to the edge. Command click. And now I'm going to draw the two wrinkles. So right on the edge of his nose here, I'll click and drag down, click and drag out, command click, click and drag down, click and drag out, command click. And now I know where to start and where to stop. So since this line kind of bends a little longer, I'm going to do it in 3 points. One off the edge of that line, one at the bottom of the curve, and one on the edge of that line. Command click. And now I'm going to draw his eyes. Notice there's little wrinkles at the top corners, little wrinkles on the sides, or at the bottoms. I'll do those last. I'm going to start right here. Click and drag up. Short line. I'll come halfway up the side and then up to that corner. Option key to start from a corner. I'll come down. Halfway down the other side, I'll add a point. All the way to the bottom, I'll add a point. Option key for a corner, and option key here at the end to close up my shape at a corner. Command click, and now I'll do it again over here. Click and drag up. Halfway up, I go up. All the way up into that corner. Option key for a corner and come down. Halfway down the side, I come down. All the way to the bottom, I come down. Option key for a corner to start. Really tiny line because I got a very short distance here. Option key to close it right there. Command click to deselect. And now I've got these two little black parts. So I'm going to start outside of his eye. Click and drag up, over, and end outside of the eye. Command click, and I'll do it again over here. Start outside, click and drag up, click and drag over, and end outside of the eye. Like that. Now I'm going to take my black arrow, select right where that curve hits the eye, divide it on my Pathfinder panel in the bottom left corner. If you don't have Pathfinders, it's Window and Pathfinder to find that panel. Bottom left corner, divide his eye. The ends of that line got chopped off. Object and ungroup the results. Anytime you use Pathfinder and divide. And I'm going to do it again over here. Click and drag and hit the edge of the eye and that line. Divide the eye into a white piece and a black piece. Anytime you use divide, you have to go to Object and ungroup the result. Then I'm going to draw the little wrinkles and details. So I'll just leave those on face details rather than screwing up that layer like I did earlier. So I'll just take the pen tool here, click and drag down to the right, come across that edge, down to the right. Command click will make a little chubby wrinkle for his cheek. Click and drag up to the right, click and drag out to the right. Command click, there's another little chubby wrinkle for his cheek. Start on the corner and click and drag. Command click, now there's a little wrinkle off the top of that eye. Here it's so small, I'm just going to make a straight line. Click, click, command click. And now I fill in the details. So I'm going to take my black arrow. I'll start right here, click and drag across the two white parts of his eye. Click on the white fill or the no fill and make those white. Start right here in the black part, click and drag across and hit the other black part. I'm on the fill, I'll fill those black. Now if I zoom out, Option and click with my zoom tool, his face details are done, so I'll lock them. His head shape hasn't been filled yet, so I'm going to take my black arrow, just hit the side of his head, make sure I'm on the fill, and I'll fill that with the skin tone. So he is pretty much done. Let me turn on his ears from the neck up. Great. Definitely looking like Elmer Fudd. Command S, save your progress. Okay, let's turn on the scan again. His head shape is done, so I'll lock that. And now we come down to the collar. I'm going to zoom back in. Right there. His collar goes up and behind his head. That's why his collar is lower than his head. His collar is not skin tone, so I'll hit the question mark key. And I'm going to start right here on this corner because it looks like this comes up and joins right there. So I'm going to click right here. Click. Now I'll come down, click and drag. Make a little curve right there. Option key for a corner and come up. Halfway across the curve, I go to the left. Right over here, a point before a sharp turn. A point right after a sharp turn. Right up here again, before this sharp turn, right after the sharp turn, halfway across the curve I put another point. Right here, a point before a sharp turn, a point right after a sharp turn. Halfway up the side I add another point to help me to control my curves. I overlap my shape, and then I'm going to come in, back, down to the start. That is one solid shape for the left half of his collar. Command click anywhere outside, and now I'm going to do the right side of his collar. So since I have two shapes, I have to overlap them. So I'm not going to start this right on the edge. I'm going to start it here. Click, click, click. Now I click and drag to start going up. Halfway across the curve, I put a point. Right over here, I put a point before a sharp turn, right after a sharp turn, and then click for that tiny little distance right there. Option key for a corner. I go up. Right over here, I put a point before the sharp turn, put a point up here after the sharp turn, come across into the face, and back down to the start. Take my black arrow. I'm going to select this piece. We'll fill it brown. Select this piece. Fill it brown. But this doesn't look right down here. Okay, that's because I drew the right side after I drew the left side. So I need to tuck this one under or below or behind. So I take the right side of his collar and say Object menu, Arrange, Send to Back. Now it doesn't cover up that edge, and he's looking pretty sporty in his collar right there. So I'll lock it. It's done. Command S. Save it. It is done. I'm going to move down to the shirt. And yes, even though his shirt is going to be brown, I don't want to start with brown. So I'm going to hit the question mark key. And what I want to do again is start with just the very outside edge of all the brown. Okay, this is a piece that's going to tuck behind his hand. So this is not, I would not consider this part of the shirt. Okay, it belongs to the hand layer. So here's how I'm going to start. I'm going to start right up here at his wrist, click and drag down. Now I'll come down to the bottom, click and drag down. Option key for a corner, click and drag to the right. Come right up to this corner, click and drag up to the right. I'm not going to create the wrinkles and folds yet. Option key for a corner, come down, right down to this corner. I'm not going to draw these two lines for the belt. Those will go last. Option key for a corner to start. No option key at the end. Option key for a corner to start. I'll come down here, put a point before the sharp turn at the bottom, right after the sharp turn at the bottom, and click. I'm not going to draw the wrinkle. That goes last. Option key for a corner to start. I put a point before a sharp turn, a point right after a sharp turn. Up here I'll do it again. Before a sharp turn, right after a sharp turn, and click for that tiny little distance there. Now remember, I'm not going to trace all the way up to here. I'm tracing the outside edges of all the brown. So I'm going to hold Option and stop right here. That's the edge of the brown. Option for a corner and come over to this edge of the brown. Option for a corner and click and click. Click and drag right there. Short little curve for that edge of the hand. Option key for a corner and start. Come right up here before the sharp turn of his elbow. I'll click and drag up. Right after the sharp turn of his elbow, click and drag up. Right before the turn of his shoulder, click and drag up. Right after the turn of his shoulder as it overlaps under his collar, so I'll click and drag inside. It overlaps to the other collar. Now I'll come down this side of the shoulder, click and drag down this center part, hold Option key to end at a corner, and I click and drag to the left to bend that little curve. And now I've got the very outer edges of all the brown for his shirt. Okay, here's the trick. Notice this little opening in between his body and his arm. So I need to create that as a separate shape. So I'm going to click and drag right here. up the edge of his little belly right there. Option key for a corner and come down to hit the arm. Option key for a corner and option key to end at a corner. Okay, with my black arrow, I'm going to select that little shape and the shape of his shirt, and I'm going to fill them both brown. So that's what his shirt is starting like. Okay, we're going to add the details and folds in a minute. I need to punch out this little space. So with my shape builder tool right down here on the left, I'm going to hold my option key. That will give me a minus or alt key on a PC. I option click the opening and I punch out a space right there. Okay, I can't see where the rest of the folds go, so I go to my black arrow, hit the question mark key and take out the color again so I can see where everything else needs to go. And now I start doing details. So right here, click and drag right to that corner, option key for a corner and come back out, command click, so there's two folds right off of his sleeve. Start on the edge, click and drag here and command click, so there's another little crease where his elbow would be. Start on the corner, click and drag up, command click, so there's another fold or crease. Click, drag, command click, click, click for a tiny little fold off of the wrist, command click, and now I got to make this line right here. So right off this corner, click and drag up. I'll bypass these two and go right up to here and just bend it right along the edge of that opening there. Okay, we'll fix that little bump there. Command click, and now I can do the belt, or what looks like a same colored belt. So I'll just start on this corner, click and drag down, down, across the bottom, back up to this corner. Option key for a corner. Whoops, let's go there. Option key, drag down, come across the bottom of that curve right there. Come back up parallel to that point. Option key to end at a corner. Command click, and I'll do this little fold right here. Just click, click, command click. And now that I've got all the wrinkles and folds and details, color comes last. Select the edge of the arm, click on my fill, and fill his shirt with color. Folds and wrinkles and all. Okay, looking good. Lock it, save it. Command S. Save what I have done so far. I don't need any brown because the next layer I'm going to do are his hands. So I'm going to click on the brown fill and hit the question mark key. And again, just like I traced the outer edges of the brown of his shirt, I'm going to trace the very outer edges of his hand. Okay, so I'm going to start right on this corner. Click and drag down and down. Option key for a corner and come up. Come up over the tip of his finger. Come back down the side. Come around the turn of his knuckle and go up into his body, around up to his sleeve, around and back to the start. Command click, and now I'll do these little wrinkles. Click and drag, command click. Right here on this corner, click, click, command click. And he has an extra finger right here, so I'm just going to start right in here. Click and drag up, come across that area, and go over, down, around, and back to the start. Okay, I want this shape to just show this little bit of color in here, so I need to make sure this shape is behind. So with my black arrow, I'm going to click on the edge of this shape and say Object menu, Arrange, Send to Back. Now when I fill that with skin tone, I can see all these edges, but when I fill in the edge of his hand, it blocks out all those edges. Okay, when you look at your file and you see a few bumps right here, just zoom in real close. So I'll just click and drag and zoom in. I can see little bumps right there. So with my white arrow, I can always take these lines and just kind of bump them around right here, or change the angle of my curve like that so it looks a little more straight. And we'll take this line right here and bump it back up. Move that point up so I don't get those weird little bumps. And that hand looks good. Now I have the other hand. Okay, again, you're going to trace the outside edge of all the skin first. That means not the inside of his hand, not the little edges here. I'm going to trace the outside edge of his skin, just the thumb part. Okay, because this is a finger by itself, that's a finger by itself, that's a finger by itself. But this skin goes under the sleeve, it hits the rifle, it goes up. So I got to be tricky with the thumb. Okay, his shirt is up here, his hands are down here. So I can start inside of his shirt. This skin tone is going to come across and end right at the edge of the rifle, right there. Option key and click for a corner. Now I come up and click. Option key to start from a corner and go out. I come up the side of the thumb. Right here is a sharp turn, so I put a point before a sharp turn, a point right after a sharp turn. Click and drag down. Option key for a corner and click. Go into his sleeve and click, and come right back down to the start. Command click to deselect, and now I draw one little curve to represent the thumb. So I'm going to start right there, click and drag to the right, come all the way up, click and drag up to the left, command click, and now he has that curve for the thumb. Okay, now I'm going to draw his fingers. And knowing how Illustrator stacks objects, this finger is behind or below this finger. And this finger, the middle one, is behind or below this finger. So I'm going to start with the one that's furthest away from me. Okay, I'm going to start inside. Click and drag up. Put a point before a sharp turn, a point after a sharp turn, and then right up here at his knuckle. A point before a sharp turn, a point after a sharp turn, click, click, back to the start. Command click, and I'm going to do it again for this finger. Click and drag up, put a point before the sharp turn, put a point right after that sharp turn. I'll come all the way across, overlap into his thumb. Come back around, make this little gap right there, right in between his thumb and his pinky, and back to the start. Command click, and now I draw the pinky. So again, the edges of the skin. Click, click. Option key to start from a corner, and I go out. Come around that sharp turn, and now go up to the right. Come up over this hump right here. Go to the right, come down the side or the tip of his finger and come down. And then I'm going to go all the way down to here, about halfway down, down and to the left. And when I end at a corner, I hold Option key and end right there. Okay, so his hand looks like a big tangled mess, but it's not going to stay that way. Again, notice I have this overlapping line, but if I filled his pinky with skin tone, you wouldn't see that overlapping line. I can see this overlapping line, but if I fill the middle finger with color, you wouldn't see that overlapping line. I'll take this finger, fill it with color, but notice his thumb is supposed to be on top. Okay, so I'm going to click on this little line, this wrinkle, hold shift and select his thumb, and bring those to the front. Object menu, arrange, bring them in front of the other fingers. Click outside. Lines should stay by themselves as lines. It's the edge of the thumb that I need to fill with skin tone again. Now I can hit Option key with my zoom tool and click to zoom out a little bit. There's his hands. I'll lock them. Command S to save them. But you'll notice I forgot this little part of his sleeve. Okay? I'm going to put that on the hand layer. So let me unlock the hands for a second. Zoom back in. Click on my fill color and hit the question mark key. And now I'm going to take the pen tool, overlap that shape. So I'll start here. Click and drag down. Right at the corner, I'll click and drag a little bit to the left. Come up into the hand and back across the top and back down to the start. I'll fill that, click on my fill that with the same brown, but it covers up the palm of his hand. So I just click on it with my black arrow and send it to the back of his hand. Object menu, arrange, send to back. Okay, that's all looking good. Let me zoom out. Let's see if that hand is truly gripping the rifle. When I turn that on, so now his hand is holding the rifle. Okay, that's all looking good. Let me zoom in and check that hand, because notice I get a little bump right there. I didn't quite line up this edge correctly. So I'm going to unlock the hands layer, take my white arrow, and just bump this little corner back right along that edge right there. Bump this corner back, and now that looks like it goes right along that edge. That looks really clean right there. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, good. He's from the waist up. All he's missing is a hunter running around the woods with no pants on. He's got his boots. He just has no pants. So let me lock all these layers again. Command S to save one more time, and then we will finish off with the pants. Now remember, they also have wrinkles. Wrinkles go last. So I'm going to start on the pants. They're not skin color. So I'll click on that, fill, hit the question mark key, and now I'm going to start with the pants by overlapping my shapes. I would never start on the edge here. I'm going to start inside the shirt. Click and drag down to the left, come around that turn, down to the right, and then I'll just click to create that straight edge right there. Option key for a corner, start to come down, right down here before a sharp turn. I put a point before the sharp turn, a point right after a sharp turn, and I'll come across to this corner and bend a line right there. Option key for a corner, I'll do a short line to the right, a short line coming up to the right, and another short line coming up to the left for that little curve right there. I'm tracing the outside edge of the tone of his pants, not the folds and creases. Option key for a corner, go up, short line, because I only have a short distance, and I will go up. Option key for a corner and click, and then just click. That's a really short straight edge right there. Not drawing the folds. Option key for a corner, come down, click and drag down. Option key for a corner, click and drag down to the left, halfway around the curve, down to the right, and now up to the right for that little curve right there. Option key for a corner, I'll come down, right where the pants meet the boot right there, I'll go up to the right, come around this turn, and go up to the left, turn and go up the side of his leg, up to the left, go all the way up over his shirt to overlap, and I'll click, click, back to the start. Command click to deselect, so I've just traced the outer edges of his pants. Now I do the wrinkles and details. click, click, Command click, click, maybe click and drag a little bit to bend that. Command click, click, and click and drag. Command click, click, then click and drag. Command click. So we got these little curves. And then this long line right here. Click and drag up. Come across that edge. Click and drag up. Command click. Now that I've drawn everything in, I'm going to take my black arrow, select the edge of his pants, click on the fill, and I will fill them the color right there. Now when I zoom out, I've got them all done, and I'll turn on the boots. Once I know that Elmer Fudd is good, he's done, I do not need my instructions anymore. Don't need those, so I'll throw them in the trash. I don't need my scan anymore. I'm done drawing him. So I will throw that in the trash and Command S one more time. Now Elmer Fudd is totally done. Can't wait to see what you come up with. Let me close this out, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.